Welcome to Blending the Family, the podcast. Topics can range from what is good wine on a first date, parenting tips, and not being afraid to ask for help. Here's your host, whose inner child is still his outer child, Tommy Maloney.
All right, take 3. Welcome to another episode of the podcast known as Blending the Family. I am your host, Tommy Maloney, and if this is your first time listening, thanks for coming by. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for downloading, uploading, sharing, caring. And if you are a regular listener, thank you. You rock. Well, you both rock. You for being a regular listener and you for listening for the first time. While I'm on that subject, let me start. I guess we'll start with the guest. Let's start with the guest. All right. A dear friend of mine who I've mentioned on the podcast before, one of my mentors, one of my dearest, closest, truest friends, and I'm saying closest and, hold on, where's the other note? Hold on, sorry. Yes, closest and truest friend, my friend Denise, is on this podcast, and there's a reason, there's a method of my madness why Denise is on here, and we're going to talk about that. And I can't find my other notes. That's not it. Oh, this is it. Okay. Couple of shout outs. Good friend of mine. I'm all about friends, and we're going to talk about the difference between true friends and close friends. But anyway, Brian, happy belated birthday to Brian. I don't know where I'm going with this, because this is like the third or fourth time I've had to record this intro because the sound wasn't right. And if you've been following me this week on Instagram and Twitter, you'll know I'm in Salt Lake City. It's been a lot of fun. But let me get back to Brian. So Brian, happy belated birthday for you. Thank you for your message on LinkedIn. I want to bring that up because I really want to share this message with you. All right. So Brian and I go way back. We worked together way back in the day at the country club in the burbs of Chicago. Anyway, I'd wish Brian a happy birthday, asking him on LinkedIn, how you doing? He says he's doing good. And he says, let me grab my glasses. Because when I read this before, it was off the my phone. And Brian says, I like listening to your podcast. Hearing you reminds me of hearing you on the radio back in the Wisconsin days. Good times. So, Brian, it was good times. If you don't know, even if you are a regular listener to the podcast, I don't know if I've mentioned this. Maybe I have. I don't know. I used to work in radio 10 years, and I think Brian used to listen to me when I worked in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And so thanks to Brian for sending me that. And you can find me on LinkedIn, The Tommy Maloney on LinkedIn. Then today, getting in the car with my buddy Dakota, he and I have been carpooling to the dreaded day job. Oh my God, I haven't had anything to drink. I haven't even had dinner yet. I haven't even had lunch or breakfast, and I know it's going to be time. What time is it right now? Because the restaurant isn't open yet. So I still have 6 minutes before the restaurant opens. Anyway, so I got in the car with Dakota, and he said, hey, by the way, I listened to your first couple of episodes. I'm like, oh, you're listening when my wife Ann was on the podcast when her and I started this? And he said yes. And so anyway, it was really cool that Dakota took the time to listen to this wacky, hopefully informative podcast that I do from time to time. And also a side note, I know I say this a lot, dreaded day jobs, and I hate the fact that some of you might be screaming at your speaker or listening in your headphones going, well, then get a different job. And you're right. I need to find something that's better suited for me, more creative. type role, and I'm really bad at taking my own advice and trying to help people out. Matter of fact, there's a gal here at the hotel that works at the hotel, and somehow we got on the subject of needing coaching, and so she potentially is going to be one of my new coaching clients after we talk some more. So anyway, yes, I know I need to find a job that I don't keep calling a dreaded day job, but at the same time, I produce this podcast and the other podcast for free. Hint, hint. But that's another story in itself. All right. So again, thanks to Brian. Thanks for responding back to me on LinkedIn, and thanks to Dakota for listening. So there you go. All right. My friend Denise, she had sent me a text about a couple months ago, and the text goes something like this. And she's talking in context. She's talking about the podcast. I learn about you through those, and I feel like I'm not 100% friend, but in my mind, I have... Hold on. I keep screwing this up. I learn about you through those, again, meaning the podcast, and I feel like I'm not 100% friend in my mind. I haven't been 100% friend to you. I'm sorry. And I was like, what are you talking about? You are a great friend. You're a true friend. And like I said, we talk about the difference, in my view, the difference between a close friend and a true friend. And we did record for just over 2 hours. I know you don't have to be subjected to 2 hours straight. So I did break it down into 2 parts. So we talk about the difference between close and true friends. We talk about in the world of social media, and even within our circle of friends, people are still maybe a little too PC as far as, you know, when you tell somebody they're being an idiot, and they get all, oh, you shouldn't say that to me, or whatever. So we talk about hurt feelings, and we also talk about a topic along the blended family divorce, which is called community divorce, and what community divorce is. So let's say, for example, I when I was married the first time, we lived in a cul-de-sac, and after the divorce, what a community divorce represents is a bit of a dividing line. So when you get divorced, who gets what friends? And so that's what a community divorce is. And we talk about that amongst not necessarily divorce, but just when you, I guess another way of putting it, when you have to fire some friends, okay, because they're just not motivating you, and it's just not a good thing. So there you go. All right. So shout out to Brian and Dakota. We talked about dreaded day job, our guest Denise, and I think that's about it. I hope you enjoy these next 2 episodes, because you get to hear a lot of really interesting conversation. Yeah, I just want to let you listen, and please send me an email, Tommy@blendingthefamily.com, Tommy@blendingthefamily.com. Love to hear your thoughts. Love to connect with you on the social, on the Instagram, on the Twitter, LinkedIn. So social as far as Twitter and blending, or Instagram, it's blend. Oh, I can never remember. Why can't I? I'm having, because I haven't eaten. I think that's part of it. I haven't eaten, not to be confused with Eaton, Colorado. Blending the family. Where am I? I know there's a way. What the heck is going on here? Yeah, blending family. That's it. Blending family. or the other one on Instagram is _Tommy_Maloney_podcast. The Tommy Maloney podcast. That's the other one. Okay? All right, there you go. I'm done talking because I really want to go eat first because I'm going to have to download the episodes into GarageBand. I'm sorry, I'm thinking out loud. Or upload them. I have to. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for caring. Thanks for sharing. And as our good friend Terry Crews would say, your success is my success. Have a good one.
Warning, you're about to listen to a conversation. Please, take a seat, don't drive, and make sure your eyes are on the things they're supposed to be on. Yeah, you, look up.
All right, so talk to me about your intentions for today and how I can help make us $1 gazillion and make you go viral.
I don't care about the viral part. Especially, I mean, I'll just go to the doctor if I get a viral issue. Yeah. Okay. A little salve will help the viral.
Well, quit going to the booby bars and maybe.
All right.
That won't happen.
This is where I want to start off. I'm going to put you on the spot, okay?
Okay.
Because I have this text from you, and this is one of those where I've wanted to talk to you about this, and I'm hoping, well, not hoping. I know you will allow an open discussion about this. With me so far? So yes. I know we really want to do this in person, but this has been driving me nuts because I really wanted to know what was going on in your mind when you sent me this text. All right, you ready?
Okay.
Okay.
Ready.
So, unfortunately, it's not date stamped. This has been a while, but you texted me saying, I haven't been 100% friend to you. I'm sorry, quote unquote. And you've always been a great friend. So that's why I've been curious about why you sent it.
Oh, okay. Well, I think this is going back maybe a couple months.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right? Okay. So to preface, you and I have known each other since 1999. Well, that's when we first met. and absolutely, I've always been a Maloney supporter. Marriages, failed marriages, the whole gamut, really. Trying to be there for you, although I hate that word trying, because you either are or you are not. But I, in my opinion, like overall, if you take a snapshot, you've always been fantastic friend to me, and I've reciprocated, hopefully being a fantastic friend to you. And I think what's fascinating is that we go through dips along our journey with life, kids, divorces, new jobs, businesses, whatever it may be, and friends go to the wayside. And for me, it's always been friends first. Maybe even and then there's I turn off everything, and then there's a Microsoft.
That's okay. I like the real stuff.
Yeah, well, that's a Microsoft invasion right there. But for me, it's always been, I adore and give my friends, I try to show up for my friends as I want them to show up for me. And that could be 5 years go by and we don't speak, and you show up on my doorstep and I'm here for you. When it becomes lack of reciprocity, I start to dwindle away, And I think at that time I was doing some self-reflection, because I have chosen to consciously move away from certain friends in this last year. And it's because there is no reciprocity to, to anything coming back. And if there's anything that I live my life without regret, but if there's anything I do regret, it's how much time I spent in my 20s and 30s worrying about what my friends' lives, circumstances, choices, ramifications, how that impacted their lives. And now that I'm in my 40s, I look back on that and I go, wow, what a time waster, because I had no control over it. What I do have control over is showing up as a real friend. And that's always been really top priority. And even in my 14-year relationship with Rob, it was a source of contention in the first few years of us being together, because he would say to me, your friends always come first. But because I was single my whole life, they did. That was a choice that I made. So when I sent you that text, again, you don't have the exact date, and I can't recall, like a couple months ago, but I'm guessing it was a couple months ago, because I've done a lot of reflection on who am I as a friend, and how do I show up as a friend? And when I don't talk to my friends, what does that look like? Do they still know that I'm here? Do they still know they can call me anytime? Or is there an unspoken, whenever either of us reaches out, then it's acceptable? Or if somebody doesn't reach out in a 6-month period of time, is that unacceptable? So you and I have always had an easy, unspoken agreement that we just move on with our lives and we do what we do. And when we need each other, we reach out, and then either one shows up right away. And I think at that time I was being overly sensitive to the friends that I was consciously giving away or letting be free of their sort of agreement with me, letting them be free. And I didn't want you to be one of them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's like you said, I mean, there is that unspoken friendship that we have had for many moons, and I hope, and I really do hope, Denise, that the same scenario, if you showed up on our doorstep, that even if it's been 5, 10, 15 years, that you understand that you're always welcome. But like I said, I'm still a little shocked over the question, because I had to do some reflection, going, all right, what did I maybe not the word inspire, but did I somehow trigger this question for you to or statement to send to me, saying that you're not feeling that you've been 100% supportive, but which isn't the case. I mean, the thing that I've always loved about you is that you do look out for others, and you do stay in contact with many people, and it's like the Jim Rohn quote, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I don't know, if as I've gotten older, I know I've become more and more of the introvert that I am. And so I feel that what you said to me in that text, I should be saying that to you, because even though you've had your rock salt business, the spa, I loved when I had opportunities to swing by and say hi, because again, I wanted to show my support, and I don't want to be one of those people going, oh, I was in the area but I didn't stop by. I mean, I want to stop by. So
Yeah.
I'm just like I said, I've had this text saved, and I really, I mean, quite honestly, I was really hoping we could have done this in person with a couple of bottles of wine to have this discussion.
Well, let's go back a little bit. What what I described is what has always been important to me, and my mom will even tell you down to the first grade. I was peacemaker on the playground. I would come home in tears because two people didn't get along, and she would explain to me that's normal. But to me, in my heart and my soul, it's not normal for people not to get along, and even just to see eye to eye. And so, there's so many different ways we can take this conversation, but for me, go back to the basics. Like, why do you think you and I became friends 20 years ago?
Well, I think we were somewhat forced because there was three of us in one oversized cubicle with two computers, and we were somewhat forced. I mean, we weren't really forced to become friends. We were forced to work together in that space. And I think if it hadn't been for, three of us sharing that cubicle space, I don't know. I mean, I really can't answer that. I mean, we've worked together. At one point you were my boss, and I had the utmost respect for you when you were my boss and colleague, and I don't know. I mean,
but that was earned also because I didn't come in, that you and a few other people wanted the position that I was put into as an acting role. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess in a way we were kind of forced, but it's not my recollection that anything that continued after we really got to know each other was ever forced, at least from my perspective. um, I've loved your humor, your caring. I mean, just caring about shit. That's our hearts saw each other, if nothing else. And the woundedness, that you later went through with divorcing and things like that. Your kid and not having time with your son, and the stuff that I really got deeper into. But it's interesting that you think like, oh, we were kind of forced because of proximity. That's not a coincidence for me. That is God, universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it. Bringing people together that are good matches. And I think now in my 40s, to come back to your original question of why did I send that, because in my 40s now we have learned how to manage our time. We've learned how to show up in the world. We're fully in our skin, hopefully. We are not dictated by our surroundings as much as we were in our 20s and 30s. And so to me, that's why in particular, one of the friends that I decided to let go and be free of my friendship with her is because she never figured out how to have that sort of momentum in the 40s. So there was no reciprocity back. And that's not to say that I expect something back from my friends. I don't. But at the end of the day, when it's unequal and you're the giver constantly, then it's not really a friendship. To me, even the word friendship has some sort of music behind it. Friendship. It's like it's the ship that binds us together. That's the law of reciprocity, is how I see it. And knowing someone's there for you, this particular person, I didn't know she was there for me for probably 10, 15 years. But I kept giving to her. And so it was like a fire hose that the water kept going out, and there was nowhere to plug in. There was no source of water to continue the hose going out because she just had nothing back to give. And I forgave that for many, many years while she too went through things, because it's a give and take. And you go back and forth. That is the law of friendship. But when a decade goes by, that the person is so depleted in their own choices in their own life that they cannot show up for you as a friend, I guess some would say that might be selfish, or some other word. But to me, it was boundaries, because I don't want to choose those people. Back to your quote of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Another way to look at it is the 5 people that you give out the most energy to. Who are those people? Are they friends? Are they ex-wives? Are they stepchildren? Are they, whatever? But who are the 5 people that suck the most energy out of you? And sadly, she became one of those. There was no inspiration. And I guess that's a word that I'd like to introduce with this friendship conversation with you, Tommy, is because I feel like you inspire me to be a better person. And I hope, for goodness sakes, that I inspire you to be a better person. And that is part of what that definition of friendship is. That musical note that I hear in my soul when I think of a great friendship. It's inspiration involved in there. And when someone continuously chooses bad things or makes bad choices in their life to where they're constantly telling you the same thing, like, I don't know if you have any of these people in your life, but this particular person I'm speaking of always used the crutch of, and I say always because it's definitely been for 15, 20 years straight. I don't have any time. I don't have any time. I don't have any time. That becomes another issue after a decade plus of friendship, because that what you're telling me time in and time out is that if I do show up at your doorstep, you don't have time for me. So words are very powerful, and you and I both know this because we're self-help guru geeks.
Yes, I like Guru Geeks. I like
Guru
that.
Geeks. Hey, that'd be a good podcast name.
There you go.
Guru Geeks. But those things mean something after a while, and I think she actually ended up pushing me away because of choosing the words of "I don't have time" for over 10 years. Then if you don't have time, what are we doing? You make time for the things that are important. My dad always told me that. You'll always make time for the things that are most important. So what that tells me is that I'm not important.
Well, I know I love, to the listeners, they're probably rolling their eyes when I say this. I'm a huge fan of Terry Crews. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I heard Terry Crews talk about is very similar to what your dad was talking about. And that is, Terry Crews would say that if he was constantly late for something, it's because he subconsciously, he really didn't want to do that. Right. And so, when you get phone calls of people and you don't return them right away, it's quite possible that's not a conversation you want to have, because, like you're saying, it could be very, very one-sided, and it could be an energy sucker instead of somebody trying to motivate you or elevate you. So those are things that, again, consciously in that situation, you're probably going, I don't want to talk to that person because it's the same old, same old.
Yeah, but what's happened to our world to just call a spade a spade? And sorry, that's a Midwest term, but from Euchre or, um,
Euchre, heart.
yeah, what's wrong? What's
Yeah.
happened to our world where we can't speak up and even tell our friends, and I mean tell our friends verbally, not even through Facebook or a text or something else, like, hey, you've let me down, or where, you're not showing up. Um, we've become so overly sensitive that we've almost numbed ourselves out of truth with one another. And I think, again, going back to your comment about the 100% friend text, is because I don't ever want to find myself there with you, nor any of my other friends. I know there will be times when we can only be partial friends, in the sense of, when I use the term 100%, I mean all of me showing up. And because when I get detoured of other life circumstances or whatever, of course your friendship's gonna, might be 50%, 60% or whatever. But I mean that on an ongoing basis. I mean that 100%, meaning overall accumulation. We're gonna falter. We're gonna have mishaps. You have travel schedules, various things that impact that. But my intent and my desire for every single one of my friendships is to always show up from my perspective as your 100% friend.
So I go back to the Jim Rohn quote, just because, you're talking about, being in your 40s, and, you should have somewhat, for the most part, figured some things out. And I think one of my biggest issues is I'm not surrounded enough by people that have very similar like-mindedness, such as you and the guru geeks. And it's funny because yesterday afternoon, one of my colleagues and we came back to the hotel after work, and I said, well, I'm going to either go to the gym or go for a walk, because I had to do something. And he goes, well, if you're going to go for a walk, I'll go with you. I'm like, all right, cool. So we are, where our hotel is, I didn't realize until later on how close we were to the airport. And so we're going for a walk, and we took this one little side road, and he's looking down and he goes, there's a bike path over there. I'm like, but the airport's right there. Sure enough, there was a bike path. And so we got on this bike path and just started walking and walking and walking. And it was great. And we came back to the hotel, had dinner. And as we were walking by the front desk, we struck up a conversation with one of the girls behind the desk. And she was talking about, because she overheard us saying, our jobs are software trainers. And she goes, can you teach me how to code? And we look at each other like we have no idea how to code. But I said to her, I go, I can help you. If you just tell me what the reasoning behind why you want to code. And she said, I want to develop a website. I have this business. I have an idea and all this. And I'm just like, let me help you. Just let me help you. And I love doing that. And I need, for me, that it's like food. I need that. I need to be able to do what I can to help others. But to reverse it, I don't have that. I don't have a circle of Denise's to, literally kick my ass and say, you said you were going to do this by now. You haven't done that. And I think, your reflection is so spot on, but I think that might be an area we just really neglect, that we don't surround ourselves with good people. We don't have the cojones to fire some of the people in our group because you're afraid that you might miss them or what have you. But if they're just full of piss and vinegar, why do you want to have them around?
Yeah, and one of the slippery slopes that we should talk about though is expectations, because don't think for a second because I say 100% friend, and if I'm not showing up 100%, that's my own criteria. I want to show up to be 100% friend, 100% daughter, 100% partner, 100% coworker. So that's just who I am. It's just my makeup to want the best out of myself. But we should talk about expectations, because expectations come when and cause a whole storm of problems, because just like now, the expectation was somebody else was going to be president. The expectation is this or whatever, and it just causes a storm of issues. I take accountability that it's only me that wants to make sure that I am showing up for you and all of the people that I care about closely, my close circle, that I show up for you as 100% friend. That's going to vary from time to time and issue to issue. But what I want it to be is the perception from your side that I'm here. I have your back. And if you needed something, I can call Denise and she's going to call me back within a day or hours or whatever it may be. But when we expect others, and my dad and I, get back to my dad too, because he and I have had a lot of conversations about this, because as I've seen my parents age, their expectations have risen. And I think that's interesting, because I think your expectations would diminish as you age. And he and I have talked about it, and he said, no, because your values get more solid. So, there's almost science behind that, and that can be a whole other conversation. But expectations is huge, because if you don't ever expect me to kick you in the butt about a goal you told me about or an achievement that you want to have, and you just tell me about it flippantly, and then I never bring it back up to you, is that friendship? I don't know. There's going to be different agreements for different people, but the expectation can't be that what I give to you, I expect back from you. The 100% friend text that I sent you was my own expectations. I felt like I faltered because I allowed some other things to sweep me in another direction. And what I was doing was consciously bringing myself back to the people who matter and the people who deserve and understand my consciousness more so than the people that I was giving it away to.
What how am I trying to phrase this? So when you were going through that reflection a couple of months ago, what have you learned since then?
Oh, great question. So with the one friend that I let free, because let that person free to be them. They don't need another person in their life asking more of them if they've already told me for 10, 15 years that they don't have enough time. So number one, it's myself taking accountability, but setting them free. It still was a journey mentally, because I did what I felt was right, to write a letter, to really bring closure, so to speak, to the relationship. But there were still days that I did second guess myself. And was that the right thing to do? Or, and I don't know, like you've gone through divorce. I haven't gone through divorce, so I don't know if you do that along the journey, but I think it's probably common for humans to go, gosh, I'm kind of sad about that. Like there's still a mourning process of that once was my really good friend and now is not there. So there's still a hole in your heart, even though you're guided to know that that's the best, highest decision for hopefully both of you. And so there were still times where I second guessed myself, but I had to reel my consciousness back in is how I look at it is, you know, when the stories or the misperceptions or things come about in my own mind, I have to consciously be wise enough to reel those back in and say that's not real. It's an insecurity, it's a fear, it's a something else popping up. But to answer your question, what did I learn? I learned that having boundaries with people is intensely powerful, for good and for bad.
For example, what kind
Well,
of boundaries?
in that sense, a boundary of saying your behavior for 10 or 15 years doesn't equal friendship to me. So I'm establishing this boundary. And I'm establishing this boundary because I need to collect my energies enough to have them available for the people who don't tell me that they don't have time day in and day out. So imagine dating somebody brand new or even your current partner and have them tell you, I don't have time for you, I don't have time for you, I don't have time for you. You know, I would venture to say that a high percentage of divorces came about from just that. So where are we spending our time? So to me, it's been a really fascinating, not easy, but powerful boundary establishment for myself to say, who do I want in that inner circle? Because we go through life and in 20s, 30s, and like I said, in my 40s now, I want my inner circle to be pretty powerful, supportive, creative, intellectual people. And if that's not happening, it's my responsibility to choose who goes on the external part of the circle. And I think we shy away from that a little bit in society because we think the more friends, the better. Oh, if you have a whole, gaggle of friends, great. But that's not really true because who's serving who? I mean, I don't mind to have a lot of people in my bigger circle, but in my inner circle, it needs to be agreed upon expectations. Really, like you're telling me when you got that text, you thought, wow, that should be me instead. So clearly that's not a conversation that you have every day with your friends. It's like, hey, what's the expectation of our friendship? Whether it's 5 years or 50 years in, but maybe it should be a part of it. Like, I just want to check in and see, like, am I being a good friend? Or even if we haven't seen each other for 5 years, how's this working? And then the law of reciprocity, really being conscious of like, what am I giving back to my friendships? How am I participating in this friendship? Friendship, it's like a rainbow to me. It's like two parts, there has to be a lot of components to make it the friendship. And I think when that time was happening for me a couple of months ago, I have a friend going through a different separate friend going through a really, really challenging time, physically, emotionally, relationship, everything. And I went up to stay with her and happened to be really good friends and close with her husband too, that she's been married to for 15, 20 years. And they're trying to separate right now. And I love them both. And That was tough. I only meant to go up there and spend one night with them, and I ended up spending two because I said to both of them, like, I don't want to have to choose. As both of your friends, I came into the relationship through her first, but I'm also friends with the husband now. So if you guys do end up separating, I don't want to have to choose between the two of you. And so, that's a whole other podcast, I think, because when separation occurs, how do you define those friendships? And do you have open and honest conversations about what that looks like? I don't know. I mean, I've only taken it case by case through my life, as you know, Tommy, but did you have those conversations along the way with your ex and shared friends or shared aunts and uncles and stuff with Connor? And how do you do that?
So in the world of divorce, it's called a community divorce, because this is where what you were just talking about. This is where your former spouse is going to take this couple, and you're going to take this friend, and so the thing I went through was because as a stupid guy, I was too afraid to really have those deep conversations with a lot of those dear friends. Back then we lived in the cul-de-sac, and pretty much everybody in the cul-de-sac, we were good friends. And so after the divorce, it was, my thought was, I felt like I was, again, this is me talking, this is my thoughts, that I was being ostracized for the divorce, and that everybody was, on her side, which wasn't the case. And so I'll never forget, I was stopping at a gas station right by where the house was, and I ran to one of my former neighbors right during, it was either, I can't remember, it was right before we had to go to court for the child custody battle, or if it was after. And this friend of mine, her husband was actually on my former wife's list of what do you call them? Witnesses for her side. And I said this to her, and I said, your husband was on her witness list. And she's like, what? She wasn't aware of that. And so we actually had a good conversation saying, no, this, we miss you. We didn't miss her. And so, unfortunately, when you have kids and going through a divorce, you somewhat have that dividing line, their family, my family, my friends, their friends. And so in that situation, it can be really rough on the kids, because, they might have been able to go to, certain friends because that's, what they were used to. But unfortunately, because of the divorce or separation, you no longer want to go there because they might have been associated with your former spouses, as far as that was her friends, and you didn't want to get mixed up in her friends. You want to stay, hang out with your friends and be able to, have those conversations going, you're better off without her, and things like that, to really boost your ego and boost your confidence that it's all going to work out. And so, community divorce is not easy.
It doesn't sound like it. And I've only known to be direct with my communication about, I don't want to have to choose, because I've gone through divorce with other friends. And it's natural for you to grow to love both people. And when that becomes severed because of their choices of living together or being married, it really shouldn't impact the rest of the world and their friends, because as long as you're mature and don't have the he said, she said, he told me this, whatever. And I think that's the pitfall, unfortunately, that most people fall into. And so that would be a whole other thing, because maturity, having maturity in friendship is paramount when you're going through divorce. And so the friends that said, please, select a side, or, he said this or whatever, and, just the back and forth, it's like, again, it goes back to our society and our even political realm is, he said this, she said this, he said this, and I'm like, oh my God, are we all having a flashback to first grade? Is there anyone that's walking the earth who does not want to participate in that? Raise your hand. Honestly, I feel so strongly about that, and I feel the same way with marriage. And so my friends, I just sat them both down and I said, this is not pretty, but I'm coming into your home. You're welcoming me into your home, and I love you both, and I want to maintain my friendship with both of you. But I need to ask you both not to say, he said this, he's doing this, she did this, she's saying this, or whatever, and put me in the middle of it, because you're going to ostracize me from both of your friendships. What I need you to do is have those conversations with each of, together, your relationship, or counselors, or somebody who's paid to do it, not your friend. And as long as we can agree to that, I'm here for both of you no matter what. And they've adhered to it. I mean, so far. So I know it's a slippery slope, and I know that because I haven't gone through the divorce like you have, it's not a cookie cutter solution, nor do I want it to be. I just miss the days of stronger, more direct communication to say, hey, friend, you're being a jerk. Hey, friend, you're being dramatic. How can I help you not have your life so dramatic? Hey, friend, you seem to be withdrawn. How can I help? You know what I mean? Just, we think we have to be all up in everybody's business about stuff. But a friendship is just being like, hey, is there anything I can do? Or could I just be a sounding board tonight? How many times have you and I just said, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? Absolutely. There's never been a no. There's never been a, oh my gosh, that lifeline is cut off. It just ebbs and flows easily. So how do we help the rest of the world to know that exists? Drama-free, expectation-free. The only expectation that is there is what we both agree upon. And if it's working, we don't need to renegotiate it. It's like, don't break what's not working, or what is working. I don't know if that's making any sense, but the friendship part to me is, I would love, before the time that I die, I would love to see our world come back to, in fact, I tweeted just the other day, and that it'd be nice for all of us to see what we have in common and to discuss that for a whole day on Twitter versus our differences.
Well, I personally just feel that we, and possibly that social media encourage this behavior, is we're just too sensitive. And so if you put a tweet out there and you're constantly looking at that tweet going, well, how many likes did I get? How many shares did I get? And it gets to the point where, like, I can't believe I don't have as many likes as this person's tweet or this person's Instagram post. And again, this is me just saying I think we're way, way too sensitive because we're too busy looking at our phones. For me, being in airports every week, it drives me nuts, drives me bonkers, where
my gosh.
people won't look up from their phone. And I'm going to do it, Denise. I swear, I'm going to do it. I'm going to step in front of somebody on purpose to hopefully give them a little nudge saying, don't be afraid to look up. But I think social media is just, as business owners, it's important to have. But if you're constantly looking at, your numbers versus building real connections. I mean, like this walk that this friend of mine and I went on yesterday, it was a blast. I mean, in my line of work, I see different colleagues from week to week. And so getting an opportunity to spend time with somebody who I normally would not, I like those personal one-on-one connections. One of my favorite people in the world of social media, and I know he'll be okay if I mention his name. His name is Kevin Knebel. And Kevin is one of the first people I ever met he's an international speaker about LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. And he said, these are great tools. However, the next step is building that human connection. And I'll never forget being at, not just one of his talks, but a couple of his workshops on social media. He talks about, if you find somebody on LinkedIn, don't use that standard, hey, I want to be part of your network. Customize those invites. But then at the same time, after you get that connection, for example, again on LinkedIn, build a real relationship with that person. And I think that's where a lot of people miss out on. They think, oh, I'm right, I'm going to connect with this person and move on and find another person and connect and move on. It's like, no. Build human one-on-one rapport. Build those relationships. And again, social media can be used in a positive way. But again, I going back to my original point, I think that's how it's hurting our society, because we don't look for the human connections. We don't look for commonality. All we're doing is looking at how many likes I'm getting on a post.
I want to tell you a story that just happened last weekend. We went to the grocery store, and the meat department guy had come out and was kind of stocking some things in the meat department. And I turned around and we caught eye contact. And I said, and it was early in the morning on a Saturday, and I said, hi, good morning. And he said, hi, what can I do for you? And I said, nothing, just wanted to say good morning. And he stood there completely dumbfounded. And he said, oh, well, I didn't really know what to do because everybody always wants something from me. And I said, nope, just wanted to say good morning. I hope you have a great day. And I walked off. And I turned around after I turned the corner and I looked at him. He was still standing there like, wow, that was a first. Yeah. And I'm like, he's the meat guy.
What just happened?
He's running the meat and seafood department. Doesn't mean that he's not a human being to say hello to. What is wrong with our world? Why are we not even saying hello to the meat person, But that's who I am. That's how I show up in the world. Rob's like, yep, of course you did. Like, that's who you are. And I'm like, yep, that's who I am. And I'm going to continue to do it until my dying day. Because I love catching people off guard. Like, he was like, what can I do for you? Like, he wanted me to tell, I need this, or whatever. And I'm like, nope, just hello. Have a great day. So I try to spread that joy along the way. And when you, going back and bringing it full circle back to your 100% friend thing, when you have your house, so to speak, your house of your friends, your family, your loved ones, the people you cherish so much, when you have that very succinct and in order, it frees you up, I think, to be able to do things like that. So, that's not to say verbatim that my ex-friend took away from my capabilities to do that every single day, because I still did. But I hope you understand the message that when I'm not dramatized with something else, it does free me to be more who I am. And I recognize that the rest of the world isn't going to go say hello to the meat department guy every day. But when we have those moments of eye contact, when we have those moments of crashing carts in the grocery store, or letting one person go through the door for 30 seconds, what is it going to matter? People fight at the checkout lanes. I got to get into the 15 or under, but I got 19 items. If we can stop that mentality, we can come back to the truth of what are we here for as human beings, and how can we show up as more conscious human beings.
Well, last Friday, I was in California, and my flight went from 30-minute delay to it's like 4 hours. And so I first called the airlines to see if there was any other flights going from this airport, Santa Ana Airport, back to Denver. And nope. Okay. And I felt the customer service agent not tense, but maybe a little nervous, going, oh gosh, I just told this customer that there's no other flights. Is this person going to blow up? And I'm like, okay, thank you for your time. Thank you, for looking for me. I greatly appreciate it. And, just like that meat counter gentleman, I think she was a little dumbfounded too, going, what? You're not going to yell at me? And I told her straight up, I said, I appreciate your time. I know this is not your fault. Things happen. This is not in your control. It's not in my control. I just want to ask. And she's like, oh, okay, all right. And I think when we do acts of kindness, or if we just talk from the heart, and that person on the other line doesn't understand what just happened, that they don't know what to do. And it's actually a good feeling. I think it's a really good feeling, because again, if you are in that other person's, shoes, or even if you're in that other person's chair, or what have you, and just treating them like a person, a human, I think, like you were saying earlier about just being on Twitter and just saying, let's share some commonalities. She is a person, I'm a person. It's all good. It's okay. In that situation, there was one of my favorite bars, and I went there and indulged in some really good wine.
As you deserve. As you deserve. And that's the thing, is like, just taking time to be 100% you. Like maybe we invert invert is one of my favorite words right now. Maybe we invert that whole 100% friend, but being 100% me. I felt when I sent you that text that I wasn't being 100% me because I was being depleted in another part. So there's no perfection, and I understand that there are always going to be depletions here and there. But when our friends are always showing up as a 100% friend, I think there's movement to be made on how we shift through depression, sadness, aloneness, people feeling, alienated from the world. There's just, it's so much of a ripple effect. And so all I know how to do, Tommy, is to do my part. And all I know how to do is to speak my truth. When I feel like I'm not being 100% friend to you or any other of my loved, cherished friends, I'm going to say to you, hey, it's not a cry for help. It's a, hey, I've been a crappy friend. I have one of my girlfriends, we used to spend tons of time together before I started my last job. And she'll send me a text every once in a while and she's like, I'm missing you. When can we grab tacos? And it's like, tonight. And she's like, great, or next Thursday or whatever. But I don't hold it against her that she waited until the point of like, hey, I'm missing you. And then I just sent her one the other day and I said, hey, I'm missing you, friend. Like, let's connect. Let's go for a hike. Let's do whatever. And she's like, today? And I'm like, not today. I'm too busy, but next week. So I'm not reiterating that I'm too busy, but I'm going to select a date next week because you are important. That's just the boundaries that I want to come back to. And that's the boundaries that I wish for all of humanity to have with one another, is to say, hey, I miss you. What if a kid said that to a parent? What if a parent said that to a kid? What if a coworker said that to a coworker? Like, imagine our world, like, not to be John Lennon, corny or anything, but imagine, like, that was the best song title and song ever. Imagine a world of people connecting. Imagine a world of people taking responsibility. Hey, I'm not a very good friend right now, but don't lose hope. Believe in me. Hang on there for another week or a month or whatever. There was, when you were going through your divorce and stuff, Tommy, I never put an expiration on it. I never said, well, you better get your cojones together before XYZ day or I'm not going to be your friend. And we do that in other circumstances in our lives.
Right.
It's just, to me, it's very sad because I want us to have a longer rope, but tighter boundaries. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things that popped in my head as far as, putting priorities with our friends, our family, I heard this story, I'm sure I've heard it many years ago, but it came up again, and that was this little boy went into his dad's home office and said, Dad, can we go outside and play? And Dad kept saying, no, I don't have time. Next day, the little boy came back in and said, Dad, can we go and play? And he said, no, I don't have time. I've got to work. Third day, the little boy came in and said, Dad, can we go out and play? And, sorry, I've got to work. So the little boy says, well, Dad, how much an hour do you make? And Dad kind of looked at the kid like, it's a little bit of a grown-up question, but why are you asking? Just, well, how much do you make an hour? And Dad said, $55 an hour.
Make me cry.
All right.
I already know where this is going.
So the little boy
$55.
didn't bother.
Oof.
Yeah, to spend that hour with his dad. And I never want, I don't want my
No, but you've
kids
known
to
that
ever
from the
have to do that.
beginning.
I don't want my
You know,
friends to
it
ever
didn't
have to
take
do
that
that.
story, but it still gives me chills, that story, because it resonates with me. My dad was a workaholic. But he was a workaholic because he was trying to build a dream for his family, you know, and if I didn't have forgiveness and the reciprocity of give and take along the way, he and I probably still wouldn't talk because we were both stubborn stinkers way back when. And now we have, that's another good title, Stubborn Stinkers. I got all kinds of podcast names, but now, I mean, we have the greatest relationship now because there's so much of me in him, and he sees it, but I get it. That's the cool part of aging. And
Well, I'm gonna reverse engineer that. So, as you know, I'm unfortunately constantly on the road, and so again, unfortunately, because I'm on the road, I miss a lot of family opportunities. And the boy, aka Connor, he just got another job, and this coming weekend is supposed to be what we call my weekend. But because he has this new job, he's working, and it hurts. Oh my gosh! When I received the email from his mom saying that he got this job and he's going to have to work, but he has to start work at 7 a.m. and it's closer to their house, and so number one, I'm pissed because I'm missing out on a weekend. And so, I'm fuming, and I just want to send, an email back to her saying, all right, I get it, I understand it, but I'm losing out on a weekend. What are you going to do about it? And luckily in my older, wiser age, I didn't do what I used to do and send off those emails without thinking. So again, I'm upset because I'm missing out on a weekend with Connor, and so later on, I said, you know what? Let me just try to be a good dad. So I texted Connor. I said, hey, super proud of you to get this other job. I hope hey, you have fun doing it, because he's doing it with one of his hockey buddies. And I'm like, again, super proud of you. I'm happy you're able to do this. Well, he responds back, thank you, and then later on he sends me a text. I can pull it up real quick. Will. I have to pull up this text, and hopefully I don't make you cry in this one, Denise. But he.
Well, while you're doing that, it's funny that you say that because I know I brought it up too, but I'm kind of an interesting person, I guess. And I don't know if more people feel this way than say it, but I'm super direct, as you know, because over the years I've called you on your stuff and like, what are you doing and why? I'm super direct, but I have a heart of gold. And people don't really know how to balance that out because they feel like you should be in one court or the other. And it's like, no, I'll run through fire for you, but you got to show up for yourself. Okay, go ahead.
So I found the text, and he says, you're fine with me staying here next weekend, right? So I responded back because I'm a huge Big Lebowski fan. And so his nickname has always been Dude. So I said, dude, I'm always going to support you as best I can. This is a great opportunity for you, and who knows who you will meet doing this or any other job. It honestly does suck not getting to see me. That was my little joke. Not getting to see me. But we all make sacrifices in life. We will figure things out. I love you. And, you know, again, it does suck. But we're going to make sacrifices. And he's making a sacrifice. I've made, in my view, maybe too many sacrifices.
Yeah, but even that word, so
hard.
This is a great, summary because we've been on for an hour. And we can pause and go on if you want, but I need a restroom break. But it's an interesting thing because you sacrifice. Like, of course you can be an actor, an actress, and like put in like sacrifice. I sacrifice for you, or you sacrifice for me. But it really has a very energetic, cut off kind of connotation. Whereas friendship, to me, like I mentioned before, like to me, it's like a rainbow. Friendship, like my part of the world connects with your part of the world and kumbaya. But sacrifice is like somebody has to give up something for something. And I think that might be a whole other conversation also, because you and I, of course, can talk for hours. But sacrifice is so finite. Like, nope, we got to do this. Like, Billy Bob can't go to camp because we don't have enough money. Or, we got to sacrifice, the family's got to sacrifice this. Or, you know what I mean? It's so much. And so we haven't done ourselves very much wonder in the world of using that word so prevalently, because it's give up this for that. And of course, again, my nature is more mediation and kumbaya, and we can find a way. We will always find a way if we can communicate. And what's important to you, what's important to us, and then find the middle ground. But when you sacrifice, you're giving up something. So you're already disgruntled. Like when I did mediation, I would never allow that word. Because you're not sacrificing shit. It's your kid. It's your family. It's the family that you chose to create. So don't be mad at me as the mediator, because I'm not going to allow you to use the word sacrifice, because you're not sacrificing shit. You're going to negotiate. Okay, I'll do this if they do that. I'll be better at this if they do better at that. And that's everybody involved in the whole family. But that's just family dynamics. That's just being more conscious communicators. That's where I would love to see our world go. Who's sacrificing what? Really, Tommy? You haven't. I know in your mind you've sacrificed a lot. But that doesn't mean that has to go to the kids. That doesn't mean that has to be a term that you use often. Because to me it means you're being depleted. And I don't like that. You're not being depleted. You're being fed. Your kid's saying, hey, Dad, I understand. Thanks for being understanding. Great. Do you agree? Do you disagree? You can disagree.
No. I like that angle, and you're right. But I agree with the fact that people do toss that word around when it really doesn't apply to them. It's over dramatic that they use that word. And so, I totally agree. And
again, there's
a different perspective.
There's no
I love
absolutes. But, another friend of mine, I'll tell you this story and then maybe we can take a break if you want to come back. But another friend of mine uses the terminology all the time, as I said, or he'll say that over and over again. And finally one day, and he's been a friend of mine for 20, 30 years also, and he goes, finally one day I go, if you already told me, I heard it. So you don't have to say, as I said. And he was like, oh, I didn't realize I said that. And I go, yeah, you say that a lot. And you're a Toastmasters guru. So you understand those crutches, but he has a couple of crutches, but they're self demeaning crutches, because not only when he says, as I said, but he has another one, if I can recall it, but he's kind of demeaning himself. And I said, stop saying that, because he'll say, if I were to say, and then he'll tell me something, and I go, are you telling me or are you not telling me? Because it's really confusing to me, and I'm your friend for 25 years. If I were to say blah, 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 and he's really not giving me a hypothetical, he's telling me how he's talking to his patients or his clients. And I'm like, yeah, I would be confused if I were your client and you said, if I were to say, because you're not absolute in your credentials. You're not standing true for your credentials. He's super credentialed. And I'm like, when you say, if I were to say, I'm already like not believing whatever's going to come out next. It's like Dr. Phil says, if you have a statement and then you go, thank you, Tommy, for your honesty, but I disagree or whatever. He goes, anything that comes after but is the truth, and whatever came before but is the feeling behind the non-truth. I might have confused you, but do you know? Okay. Are you going to pause it?
Nah, go pot it.
Thank you for listening to Blending the Family, the podcast. Don't worry, this podcast is not forever. Oh, thank God. Wait. Please leave a rating and review, however you get this podcast, whether it's through the mail or from your neighbor or listening in under the couch. I don't know. You tell me.